G'day beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to go over the version 44.3 notes for Legions of Agora. It's a pretty big patch. We've had a bit of a map reorientation, we've got minion changes, most notably the fact that they're actually looking pretty sweet right now. A bunch of hero changes, bunch of card changes, and some other stuff. I'm going to try to keep it as light as possible. We'll go over the main stuff. I might not go over all the hero changes, just some of the more notable changes. So let's get started. First up, the minions. So, minions are rebuilt from the ground up, a new appearance to match their gameplay changes. Powered by Agora itself, minions will shed pieces of their armor during the fight, ultimately exposing their weak core for you to take the kill. Sounds a little bit better than it is. They actually, from everything that I've seen so far, they shed their armor when they're last hittable. So, yeah, it kind of sounds like they just constantly shed armor, but they don't. Their armor will pop off the moment that you can get a last hit on them. Then we have, I won't worry about that video. Patch notes link will be in the description down below if you haven't already seen them. This adorable guy, born from the ashes, Iggy, which is in that video in a moment. He looks spectacular. This is probably the best skin in the game by far. It's a tier 3 skin, so his abilities have changed right there. You see no longer a Molotov, more fireworks. His turrets are a little bit different in their look and their effects. Iggy and Scorch just look amazing. Such a good skin. Oh my god, can't wait to get my hands on that. Might take a little while though. Then we have the lane change. Now for people that are familiar with Legacy, this is the way it was going to work again. So we have the duo lane and solo lane wrapped aside of the map, meaning this whole side here is now the duo lane. Carry support versus carry support. The prime side rather is the solo lane. Solo lane gold buff is being replaced by a green or aqua buff rather, which offers you 15 health regen for 15 seconds. So that's 225 health. Is that correct? Yes, it's correct. And there'll only be one of each buff. So there'll be one green buff and there'll be one gold buff. So you're going to have to fight over them. Unfortunately, the only issue that I have with this is that on Legacy, everything was even. It was a symmetrical map, so the center of the lane came right through the center of the map. You can make the argument that the duo lane should be fine, because if they're meeting in the middle, you can get ganked from here or you can get ganked from here. But technically, it's a little bit easier to do gank this side than it is to gank this side. But we'll have to wait and see how that plays out anyway. Heaps of hero changes, a lot to do with a lot of the offlaners getting buffs, which I'm a little bit worried about, because now that they're facing off against each other, a bunch of them have actually been buffed when they didn't really need to be. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Kwong's probably going to be pretty strong. Another thing that I like is the new draft lobby. Looks a lot better. Aurora looking spectacular in the background there. So the way that it works now is it'll tell you whether you're Dawn or Dusk side. You have to pick a position first. So you have off lane, mid lane, jungle, support, carry, not caster. And the game will actually give you the option to choose what it deems to be an offlaner. There's a couple in there that I really think deserve to be classed as offlaners, like Gideon and Belka. But you can still click all heroes. But what I'm hoping for is just the addition of this suggested hero pool. It's going to hopefully mean that a lot of people are going to learn where everyone's best at quicker, without having to be taught by online forums, videos and such, because a lot of the community doesn't actually visit Reddit. They don't watch YouTube videos on the game, they just play the game. So this should hopefully help a lot of people to learn how to play the game a little bit better. Then we have the full release notes. First off, store pre-Winterfest Epic Mega Sale. All skins, emotes, and banners 30% off from November 20th to 27th. So that is on now. Get in there and spend those coins if you've got enough. If you've got around, with 30% off, it's probably going to be just over 1,000 coins for Iggy's skin, I would assume. I've not actually looked at what that costs, but I'm assuming it's around there. Okay, so we're going to quickly go through this stuff. Already covered the laning. There's a new free look camera. Default key is left alt on PC. This is a very, very good thing for people with global ultimates. Or even just the fact that if you are standing in lane and you want to look around, you don't have to sort of near turn your back on the enemy hero to let them know that you're not paying attention. The aqua buff, which is the solo lane camp, the off lane camp, spawns at 3 minutes and every 2 minutes, just like a gold buff. Gold drip is being reduced. Gold drip is a system where every certain amount of seconds, everybody on the map gets passive gold. So that's being reduced, which is kind of pushing things more towards getting team fights on the go to increase your gold. They've increased the amount of gold shared when a teammate gets a last hit from 40 to 50%. So this is going to be very, very good for supports. They're going to get way more gold, and it's going to be less of an issue when people are in lane with you. Okay, so the way that the way that this works is that if you were a support and your carry got a last hit, you used to get 40%. I'm pretty sure it was. You now actually get 50%. Okay, so you see right here, the last hitter will get 100 and you'll get 50. One thing that I do have an issue with is players will now be able to get a portion of the gold bounty if no one gets a last hit. Okay, so right here, if minions die from anything but a last hit, if you're on your own, you'll actually get 60% of that. Okay, and if all 5 heroes are there, you'll get 24%. So within a team fight while minions are dying to each other, why they would be fighting each other, I don't know, but you'd be getting 24% of the last hit gold. I don't like that. I am one of the people that don't like the last hit changes. I don't like the I didn't like the passive drip being so high. I liked the jungler contribution, so this is more towards that end, and I'm not extremely happy with it. They've increased the death streak gold bounty reduction, so that means that the, say a mid laner's been picked for the 10th time, he's going to be giving up less and less gold. Same with XP. Movement penalties across the board are being decreased, so this is a penalty that applies when you attack or you strafe or you backpedal. When you're strafing, it's a 50% reduction, so it's now at 15% movement penalty. So you have range combat penalties, 40 to 25%. Everything that you do that caused you to slow down, that wasn't being applied by another hero, has been reduced drastically. Fangtooth is having his health dropped by just over 25%, but he's going to get a little bit more, or quite a lot more per level, nearly 33% more, or probably around 30% more. Adjusted their basic defense though as well, dropping that. And they've put the initial spawn timer at 5 minutes, which is a little bit more realistic, to be honest. The Prime Guardian is having his health decrease quite a lot as well, and his base defense has been decreased. Ability defense has been increased though, so that's going to sort of mean that casters and whatnot aren't going to do quite as much damage. Apart from his homing projectile having its base damage reduced, everything else that he attacks you with is going to do more damage. Quite a bit more. The knockback's going to do twice as much damage. As far as structures go, the way that it is right now, 7 minutes into a game, towers have bonus armor. That has been reduced to 5 minutes, so it'll be easier for you to push those tier 1 towers earlier now. They've reduced the early game bonus defense from 150 to 120 though. They've increased the tower defense penetration. They've increased tier 1 tower damage from 182 to 200. Okay. It's a little bit nicer. People are pretty squishy at the start of the game, so that's probably going to help. Increased tier 2 tower health quite a bit. Increased the inhibitor's basic defense. And they've updated the economy, so you're going to get more from towers being destroyed now as well. Not much, but some. Jungle, the only changes are that large minions, green buff and black buff, are having health increases. And they've changed the initial spawn time of green and black buff from 1 minute 30 to 1 minute 20. All minions in the jungle are going to give you more XP and more gold. They've increased the slow on the hunter's sight buff, which is your black buff. So if you're a melee hero, it's now going to do 20% slow. If you're a ranged hero, it's going to do 15% slow. Then we have lane minions. They're increasing the amount of time it takes before minions are being added to waves. Currently, or previously, it was the 22nd, 38th, and 58th wave that minions got added to. And now it's 30, 44, and 60th. They've reduced minions' movement speed. They've reduced super minion health. They've reduced siege minion damage versus heroes drastically from 75% to 20%. Those guys hit like a truck, so that's nice. They've adjusted the melee and range minions defense, and they've updated the economy. Everyone is going to be worth more, and now super minions, why this is a thing, 20 gold and 10 XP, not even worth it. Knockups, I like and dislike. It is being, all knockups are going to be the same height, and they're going to be reduced a little bit. But all knockups also apply a stun when you land, to make them, it makes them balanced against each other, but it's increasing this ridiculous CC meta that we're in. They've increased the base respawn time from 7 to 10 seconds, yada yada. Bots, yada yada yada. Hero unlocks. If this is means anything to you guys, there are now 4 tiers of unlockable heroes. Tier 1 at level 3, Tier 2 at level 5, Tier 3 at level 10, and Tier 4 at level 15. So this is your account level, and there'll be 4 tiers of unlockable heroes. Okay, so now there's a bunch of polish and bug fixes, and then we have the hero changes. I will go into just the things that I feel are more important and give you an overall on each of the heroes. Aurora overall is getting a nerf. She is pretty much getting reductions across the board. Her attack damage has been increased at base, but she's going to get less per level. But that's going to work out as a nerf across the board. And mainly her ultimate being affected, which kind of does make sense because if she is support, she shouldn't do that much damage. Counters is getting a buff. Mainly her Shadow Slip. Instead of doing 20% slow on Shadow Slip, it's now 42 to 51%. Crunch is getting kind of a buff, I guess. His forward crunch now applies a slow. His left crunch is kind of being nerfed. His right crunch is being nerfed, but it doesn't slow anymore. It applies a half a second stun. Empowered versions actually have longer stuns. Recrunch has been buffed by costing less mana, and then across the board he's actually been buffed and nerfed. Dekka's Rocket Boots, it's 25 mana compared to 60 mana. That is very nice, and it's got a cooldown reduction. Stasis Bomb is getting a buff. Slow Bubble's getting a buff. So she's got a buff across the board. Drongo is getting kind of a nerf. His old Rusty is getting a buff, but he's getting nerfed in the way of his rad rounds. Feng Mao is getting a buff. I'm not sure why he needed to get a buff at all. Everything of his is getting buffed. He's strong enough as it is. He doesn't need a buff. Gadget is getting buffed. Slow magnitudes and speed boosts are being increased. The Tesla Dome getting massive slow movement slow increase. Oh my god, the words. Gideon is getting mostly a buff. His Void Breach is going to do less damage, but it's actually going to apply a slow as well. So both of his abilities will now apply a slow. Oh no, sorry, rather Void Breach slows and Cosmic Rift doesn't. But they are buffing Cosmic Rift a little bit. And then power scaling is going up to around about what Void Breach used to be. I'm not 100% certain on how this works, but Black Hole's stun now reapplies on every damage instance. So I'm assuming that the stun is going to work exactly the same way that it used to, but now you won't be able to purify yourself out of it. Greystone is getting a buff. He kind of needs it a little bit, I suppose. He's getting cooldown reduction on his ultimate. They've fixed a bit of an issue where he could be damaged before he could move. Make Way is going to cost less mana. And same with Assault Gates, and their damage is being increased. Grimm's suppression mode is getting a buff. Grux's double pain is getting nerfed because it can no longer critically hit, which will be important in a moment. Everything else is kind of being buffed. Howitzer is getting a buff across the board. Iggy is getting a nerf, which is stupid because they reworked him and now this is his 3rd or 4th nerf. Kalari is getting a buff, nothing really too important. Chimera is getting a buff, which I actually like the looks of. They've increased the slow duration of Ambush and Unleash, which is the ability that allows him to have max attack speed. They're increasing the amount of damage you can do. At max level you used to only do 77.5% of your normal damage, now you can actually do 100 at max attack speed. Kwong is getting a buff pretty much across the board, which I don't even know why he needed it. Bellica is getting a buff to her Seismic Assault. They're re-increasing the stun duration. Morogesh is getting kind of a nerf, I guess. Murdoch is kind of getting nerfed. Muriel's having a few changes. Her ult can now cleanse. Everything else is being buffed. Narbash, his Thunk is getting a buff. His March is getting a buff. His Song of My People now generates a healing aura that ticks twice per second instead of giving health regen. This is important because of Phase. His Crash Bang Boom, his ultimate, is also getting buffed. So Phase's telekinetic link no longer shares health regen with Phase's link teammate. The healing granted on ability cast is now heal over time, so that you can no longer get health regen from heroes. So there's no sort of buffing Rampage with other people's health regen. The way that telekinetic link works is going to be a little bit more complicated than it used to be, but you can now pull stun to rooted heroes, so you can now get carries out of Gideon's ult. Apart from that, she's getting a buff across the board. Rampage, I don't know why, is getting a buff. They are reducing the health regen on his King of the Jungle, which is kind of going to help, but I really feel like they need to get rid of the damage from the active side of Enraged. Sorry, would that be the active side of Enraged? No, it'd be the active side of King of the Jungle, I believe. One of them. Revenant Scar now applies a stacking slow, and Reckoning can be cast while moving. This is going to be dirty because if you Scar and use Reckoning, you're gonna kind of really hurt people. Because you can Scar, Obliterate, and get slow off, not be slowed down by Reckoning. It's going to be ridiculous. Richter is getting a buff. Everyone's getting a buff. You get a buff, you get a buff, you get a buff. Everyone gets a buff. Seraph is getting, pretty sure, a buff across the board. Severog is getting a buff that is stupid, because they've had to rework him again just to make him work with the last hit mechanics. He can now get stacks from any kill, Doesn't matter whether he uses his abilities or a basic attack, but they have increased the, they've doubled the thresholds where you get your bonus health and power. So that's nice, but 200's not that bad. But I guess now he's less of an expert hero, I suppose, because, you know, it's not so difficult to get all your stacks. Apart from that, everything's being buffed across the board. Shimby's getting a buff, I'm not even sure why, because she's stupid. Sparrow's getting an amazing buff. Her piercing shot's getting buffed, her hail of arrows is getting buffed. What's more important is that Relentless is getting buffed. Previously it would stack 5 times, and if you were at level 1 it would be 0.2% per stack, so that would be 1% total. Level 2 it would be 4%, no, that was 2%, not 0.2%, so it would be 10%. At level 2 it would be 20%, then 30%, and then 40%. But now you can actually get 10 stacks, and it starts at 1.75 and ends up at 7, so that's 70% extra damage. That is huge. Steel's having a buff, of course. He's going to be quite nice. He's actually getting a stun on his shield bash now, which lasts for 1.2 seconds instead of 0.5. The Fae is of course getting a buff, the main one being that her pull delay on her fly trap is being reduced from 1.25 to 0.3 seconds and now applies a stun. Twin Blast is getting a buff across the board. He's getting increased movement speed slows. His Ventilate is going to hopefully hit a lot harder, a lot easier. They've decreased the amount of shots in it and the amount of time that it takes for the ultimate to be used, but they're increasing damage across the board. Wraith is getting a buff. Wraith can now jump during knock knock, and mana cost decreases for who's there and back it up. Wukong's getting a buff. One that's quite nice actually, Staff of Legend in offensive stance, which is where you thrust your staff forward. Now will apply a stun on the primary knockback up to 1.6 seconds. So if someone moves up on you, you hit them and then you push them back, and the minions, your clones, go back with them, they're going to be stuck for 1.6 seconds copying damage from 3 of your minions. Cloudwalker being buffed as well. In the offensive version, they're adding a movement speed slow increase from 20% at all levels up to 41% at max level, so that's pretty big. Yini's getting a pretty basic buff. Backlash now costs nothing, and Lash Kick is being a quick cast, and it's going to be quicker. Windburn costs less. Quelling Gale has a massive movement speed slow increase. They're trying to fix Zinx. They're kind of reworking how much health she can reduce, how much health she can get from taking damage in her ultimate, but they're also changing the mana cost so it'll be cheaper. Bad Medicine's got a slow on it. Kitty Claws is having a buff, even though this says buff nerf, and their stun is being changed pretty much so that it has, it used to have a 1 second stun and it would add 0.25 seconds per bounce, but now it has a 1.2 stun and 0.2 second per bounce. So if you only hit 1, 2 or 3 targets, it's going to be stronger. 4 it will be the same, and after that it'll actually be weaker. I think they're changing a bunch of cards. The ones that are important are Possessed Bracken, nerfed to 10% health regen, to 10 health regen rather. Plague Lord Malink, they're reducing slow to 10%. Taskmaster no longer grants gold. Withering Shadow nerfed a slight bit. There's a bunch of knowledge changes. They're reducing gold costs on a bunch of stuff. Some other things that matter is that for some reason they're making OPD Militia have more power, more damage. Rejuvenate is going to cost less and give you more. No, it's going to cost the same. It's going to give you more across the board. Stasis Rune is going to be castable every 25 seconds. Thaumaturge is kind of going to have a tooltip change to show you how much extra power you're getting. Order, a few cards of having some buffs in here. Form of Grubbish is being added. I'm sure you've seen that. Stagnant Dominion, important one. Bellica's Void Drone and Iggy's Burning Sensation no longer apply Stagnant Dominion, so that's a good change. In growth, there's a few good changes. Chanting Shaman is going to be very, very good for supports now. 75% increased mana regen when you're near a nearby ally. Malink Nasher is having a buff. Might look slight, but that is pretty big actually. That means that you're going to be able to get 40% extra damage. Pretty much everything that needed to be nerfed is kind of being nerfed. The big one though is Chaos Deathcrawler. Abilities which are considered a basic attack that cannot crit will no longer proc Deathcrawler. So that means Grox's Double Pain, which we said before, it is basic damage that can't crit, so it can't proc Deathcrawler. So look forward to seeing some more tanky Groxes coming through in the future. As far as gems go, not a big deal on the changes there. There's a bunch of UI changes that we're not going to go over, and we have the loot crate update. So that is everything in the patch. I know I skimped over a lot of stuff at the end there, but there's just way too much information. So I'm going to get this video out, go and play some, and record some matches for you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button. If you have any questions whatsoever, if something wasn't clear, please leave me a question in the comment section in the down there. And subscribe for more Paragon content. With that said, thanks so much for watching. I love your face, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.